Okay, welcome everyone. So tonight we don't seem to have a quorum. That may change if someone else comes on the meeting, but I will take attendance. So when I call your name, just say you're here. Terry?
Here.
Michael?
Yeah.
Kristen?
Here.
Ginger?
I'm here.
And Susan?
Here.
And I'm here too, Carol Ann. Okay. So since we don't have a quorum, we can't review the minutes or approve the minutes, I should say. But did everyone have a chance to look at them? And are there any changes that anyone wants?
No. Looking good.
Okay. Okay. So if we don't end up with a quorum tonight, we'll approve the minutes at the next meeting or whenever. Okay, Ginger, would you like to start with your report?
Sure. So let's see here. Let me just talk about the fact that we're actually getting a few things restarted at the COA and how exciting that is after 2 years. So we did switch to a no mask or masks being optional if you can prove that you're fully vaccinated, including a booster, which is basically the policy we had in place before last August. Last August, I put a mask mandate in place at the COA prior to the Board of Health doing theirs much later in the year. Because at that time, seniors didn't have any boosters yet, and the numbers were starting to rise. So but now most seniors have had boosters. And so we're back to masks optional, but still requiring proof of vaccination. And so we are keeping track of that. And no one is giving us a difficult time about that. You know, it is still a little bit strange to after being the mask police for several months, to remember to zip and not say to somebody that they can't be in the building without having a mask. So we still have people that are choosing to wear a mask. We make a big point of having some signage out saying that we're mask friendly, that we don't want anyone to feel bad that, you know, chooses to continue to wear a mask, and we don't want anybody, you know, harassed about that. You know, that's still a personal choice. So that's been going well. We've been without masks for about 3 weeks now. And we started the coffee bar up again yesterday for the first time in 2 years. So there was great happiness that there's now coffee and tea available for the first time. We are planning to restart Wednesday lunches we're going to do 2 in April and 2 in May, and start a little small, be at half capacity. Our capacity is 96, 12 tables of 8. We're going to still put up 12 tables, but limit it to 4 people per table, maximum of 48 people, which I think is going to be enough in the beginning. You know, it's not going to restart at the same level we ended. On the alternate weeks that we don't have indoor dining, we will still offer the drive-through lunch, as long as there's still enough interest. We're not going to do a drive-through for 3 or 4 people, but if there's still enough interest, we'll do drive-through on the alternate weeks. If that goes well, we will probably go to weekly luncheons in June. And we are hoping to have our first event or party, if you will, to be our annual tea party. I don't know if we can call it annual anymore since we skipped 2 years, but I guess we can, because we did drive-through tea party in the last 2 years. But we're going to have it in person, but we're going to have 2 seatings, one seating at 1 and one seating at 3, so that once again we limit the number of people in the room. We don't jam pack the auditorium. So we hope to have that at the end of April. And we'll probably get trips restarted in June. This all assumes that the COVID numbers stay as they are or drop further. Of clearly, if we started to see a spike again, or if there were to be a new variant of concern, then we would have to revisit all of these plans. But this is what we've got going for right now. So that's pretty exciting for us after a very long time of not being able to do things the way we'd like to do them. And it's pretty exciting for seniors who have not had the full ability to enjoy all the programming that we typically offer. So, so that's those are the startup plans. Let's see. We have recruited enough seniors for our Pen Pal program. It was going very slow, and I was afraid we weren't going to be able to do it, but I love the idea. We've got enough seniors, and so the first letters will be arriving from the students, I believe this week or next week. We in turn will, get those disseminated to the seniors that are participating. They'll write back, and we'll be going like that for a while. So we are very excited that is launched. For those of you who don't know, both Terry and Kristen took the UCLA training to become a trainer on the memory class. And so now we're going to pair each of them up with a staff member. Terry has been paired up with Nicole Saya, our social service supervisor, and they have a 4-week program getting ready to launch in about 2 weeks or so. And we put in the newsletter that we had a few slots left for that group, which filled right away. And we already have 15 people on the list for the next memory training class. And Kristen will be doing that with Lauren. And I think they're working out what dates to select for that. So that'll be coming up. It might even start before the other one ends. I'm not sure. But so still lots of interest in that class. And thank you to Terry and to Kristen for getting trained so that, because it does require 2 leaders in order to use that UCLA program. And so this will be a little less of a time sink for the COA staff to have volunteer support to do that. So thank you for that. The IT department has been working on deploying laptops to each of the COA staff members that have a computer. The idea behind that is that when you do have to work from home, you simply unplug from your docking station and you take your laptop home with you, and we will all have VPN access, and we'll all have access to the documents that exactly as if we were working in the office. Now, of course, that would have been wonderful 2 years ago. We didn't have that, but and we had a lot of workarounds, to make that work. But going forward, we will have the equipment we need to work from home, and that includes snow days. Snow days are no longer, free extra day off. Snow days, you are expected to work from home now. And so you just have to anticipate the weather. If it looks like we might have a snow day the next day, you got to remember to take your laptop home. Then, of course, you do have to remember to bring it back, or you have no computer at work. So one of the reasons I think we're one of the departments to get fully deployed with all of our staff is that we really need to use something called soft phones. It was a real challenge for us during the pandemic, trying to use our personal phones to call clients. We either had to, do the star whatever to block your number, or we had a phone number to call in that then we put in a code, and then that would mimic us making a telephone call from the town of Concord, so that our personal identifying information, wasn't out there. And it was very time consuming. If you made one little mistake on your code, you had to start over again. So now we will have soft phones eventually. And if you need to make a telephone call, a work-related telephone call, you will be doing that from your computer. Your computer will be your phone. And so this will be better for us for working from home, and more of a protection for people's privacy, and not an expectation to. We have a lot of expectations for people using their personal computers, using their personal phones, et cetera, which isn't really fair, So now these will be town supplied pieces of equipment. When people are expected to work from home, they won't be utilizing their own equipment to do so. So that is almost complete. There's only a couple of people left that need those laptops, and that's going well. We did get out patient navigator materials to most of the doctor's offices in Concord that seniors tend to use. So we're continuing to promote that program, and there's going to be another training of volunteers coming up. And I think that will bring our total number of trained volunteers to 9 once this next group is trained. So if you know anyone else, I think that's coming up in April, anyone else who might be interested in being trained as a patient navigator, they should get in touch with our nurse, and that's Valerie Boja. She could sort of explain the time commitment. And it's 2 training sessions of about, I want to say, a couple of hours each, is what it takes. I think I had reported to you that I had been invited to the Disability Commission meeting, and then 2 months ago they had a really packed agenda, and they asked if I could move to the March meeting, which I agreed to, but then they had another packed agenda, and so I still haven't gone. So I don't have anything to report on that. I haven't been yet. I wanted to mention that I saw that, particularly since Margaret isn't here, that Minuteman Senior Services needs people that will volunteer to deliver Meals on Wheels. So if you know anyone who would be willing to do that, I believe the structure is that you volunteer for a certain day a week. So say you have Mondays, you would be responsible for delivering the Meals on Wheels on Mondays. I believe that you pick up the meals in Lincoln, and then so there's a little bit of a drive out of town to Lincoln to pick up the meals, and back into Concord to deliver the meals to people's homes. So if you know anyone who would be willing, please pass that on. And I just wanted to ask if everyone had gotten their email from Kari related to the ethics acknowledgement materials that you have to acknowledge receiving, and the conflict of interest, et cetera. Did everyone get that and respond accordingly? No, I see a few people saying no.
I don't think so. Not recently.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, that was within the last few days. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to just forward that whole email to the whole board. And apologies if you get it twice, but want to be sure that you all have seen it, as it sounds like maybe you haven't. So I'll take care of that. I'll put an extra star on that agenda item.
Ginger, is there anything we have to do? Like, is there training that we have to certify that we've done, or is it just that we're being notified?
Yeah, I think you have to acknowledge receipt of what Kari has sent. I think it depends on how long ago you did your ethics training, whether or not you're going to have to do that again. So I think that's good for 2 years. I'll take a look at it before I send it to you, and then try to clarify that for folks.
Okay, maybe she didn't send it to everyone because we're not due.
Maybe. I'll see if I can figure that out. So one of the things that has come up with the staff a lot, and most recently Rod and I had a conversation about it, is the signage at the Harvey Wheeler Community Center. 2 things. One is a sign on the building itself that would identify that as the Concord Council on Aging, because there's no signage at all that indicates that that's where the COA is. It just says the Harvey Wheeler Community Center. And also some signage out at the street that would indicate what town offices are in there. For instance, that the Carousel Preschool is in there, that like the facilities manager over at 55 Church Street, and, you know, to let the public know as they're turning into the parking lot, oh yes, I've got the right place. You know, this is where the veterans officer is, you know. So this has been talked about for quite a while. And I guess one of the challenges is with the Historic Commission, and signage, you know, can be a little tricky in a historic district. And so this is more of a heads up that there is a staff member from facilities department working on that. But it might be helpful down the road. I don't know if it's going to be necessary if the COA board wrote some kind of a letter to the Historic Commission, sort of indicating, the importance of good signage, particularly for seniors. So from our perspective, and sort of endorsing and encouraging them to allow, tastefully done signage. So I can sort of let you know if we don't have a quorum tonight anyway, so you can't take a vote to write such a letter, but that might be coming down the road, a sort of a request of the board to consider putting name to paper and asking them to consider doing that. And the only other thing I had was to talk about the transportation meeting that the Board of Selectmen sponsored last night, but maybe we'll do that under new business, whichever you'd like to do.
I can talk about it now. Fine.
Okay, well, there was a few people that are on the meeting tonight that were there, so feel free to jump in. And everybody has their idea of the summary. I guess my takeaway was that there are so many worthy projects, but it was quite clear to me with, for instance, the presentation by the head of the Department of Public Works, that it takes a massive amount of money just to maintain, what we have already, just literally millions of dollars, something like $34 million over the course of 5 years just to maintain what we have. And that's not a penny towards any of the worthy projects that many groups have put forward related to, improved sidewalks or, bike paths or connectivity to other towns or any of those things. And so, in some ways it's a little frustrating because you just can't even imagine, like, how can we possibly afford to do any of these, and we can't even really afford to maintain what we have. So how do we get more money? There's a little bit of discussion about, is Concord going to get any of this infrastructure money that's coming down from the federal government? And might that be a pot of money that could be tapped for some of these things? And that's yet to be seen, So, and there is still the ARPA money out there that I don't think that's been fully decided how that's going to be disseminated. So, that was sort of like my overall take. And then, a couple other transportation things did come up related to, there was a grant that Sudbury took the lead on a taxi program, but you had to have each town had to make a contract with each of the preferred taxi companies that they had vetted. And Concord doesn't have a contract with those taxi companies. So we weren't able to use that funding. And I believe that funding now has to go back to some of the other towns that were a part of that program. Came up briefly about the use of vehicles off prime time. In other words, COA vans, not when we're in use, or school buses, not when they're in use. And was there any way that these existing assets, could be used in a different way? And, COA is sort of restricted in at least one of our vans, that was funded by a private entity. It cannot be used for anything but Concord seniors. So, that puts a limitation at least on one of our vehicles. And also, the question of, it didn't really come up, but I guess I'll just say it in this meeting, is if you take an asset like that, we put relatively, say, low mileage on our vans because we don't go very far, and it starts being used for other purposes and it wears out much sooner. There is a cost involved in, replacing vehicles much sooner than we typically would have to. So all of those things would have to be taken into consideration. And the same thing would hold true for school buses or whatever you used. You're gonna wear those vehicles out, sooner. if you use them for this other purpose. It doesn't mean don't do it. It means at least be aware that that's going to happen, and it's going to be an expense the town has to find a way to absorb if we're going to do that. So, I'm trying to think other things that sort of came up. You know, it's such a broad topic, I guess, you know, from safe streets to, you know, all the sustainability issues. So I think it was hard to reel it in, you know, and I think that's what the select board is going to be trying to do now, is to see if they can find a way to prioritize a few projects and have them, what do they call that, shovel ready? Like some of these grants that you can apply for, you got to be ready to go. You can't be say, oh, this would be a nice idea, but be 18 months out from, you know, a design, et cetera. So, you know, I think that was one thought that sort of came out, like we need to have a couple things ready to go in case someone becomes aware of grant funding, or maybe there's ARPA funding, or maybe the infrastructure funding could be used for some of that. So some brief discussion about, should we be hiring a consultant, you know, to do some of this work, because existing staff is pretty overwhelmed. And also, I guess there is a proposal for next town meeting to hire a dedicated staff member to do transportation related issues. That's correct, right, Susan?
Yeah, it's a half-time position, but that it's included in the budget that will be voted at town meeting. Mm-hmm.
Right. So anyways, I'll stop there. Those of you who are there want to add some other thoughts, please jump in.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the fact that there will be an impact on West Concord when the Route 2 bridge is fully open this summer, and that will provide opportunities and concerns in the whole West Concord area, which of course includes the COA facility. I think that it's sort of one of those unintended consequences of having a Bruce Freeman Trail go through your backyard, which it does for my son in West Concord. But I think it's something that we'll probably have to deal with at that point.
I'm sorry, so can you explain? So you mean the pedestrian bridge that's going to go over Route 2, when that's opened and becomes more fully trafficked, it will bring people to West Concord?
Right.
Okay.
It will bring people to West Concord from outside, and there really won't be a control over coming from outside and into West Concord Center. And you know, I think that Bruce Freeman Trail is open day and night. So, you know, that's another opportunity as well. I think that when you come off of that bridge, you do come to the stoplight on Commonwealth Avenue, where someone who wants to cross and keep going could use a light to be able to do that. So but that's the first stopping point, if you will, after that, and then you're right in Concord Center from there.
Yeah, you're first of all, Ginger, that was a great summary of the discussion. And I think the focus of concern in West Concord is Junction Park, which is the little park that's right by the rail, by Club Car Cafes on one side, and then 7-Eleven mall is on the other. And it's that seems to be the squeeze point. And there's signage that says the trail goes down that cobblestone path and then turns left and kind of in front of the Club Car Cafe building and goes around and then over the tracks. But people just seem to come from the straight on from the tracks. So that's sort of the focus of how to make that's what the conversations have been about, how to make that safe for pedestrians and people with mobility issues and cyclists. So it's not clear. There've been a lot of suggestions, but the parking that's in front of Club Car Cafe that abuts Commonwealth Avenue is that's all owned by the MBTA. So it's not town land that you could say, you know, that we have a lot of leeway in determining how it's used. So it's, you know, it's exciting, but it's concern about just the volume.
Okay, sorry, Susan. And when you talk about parking in front of Club Car Cafe, you mean the parking across the railroad tracks is owned? Okay, the ones right at Club Car Cafe is owned by Club Car Cafe.
Well,
but then across the tracks is that big parking lot.
Right, but in front of Club Car Cafe, that's that and the building are owned by the MBTA. Club Car is a tenant at will in that building. So
Okay.
it's yeah, which is why it looks a little decrepit. We've been trying to get them to, you know, fix it. And during COVID, when ridership tanked, they had no appetite for, you know, that's a kind of a separate topic, but they're not easy to deal with.
And the concern that you're talking about then is the way it kind of jogs around. And so it's not a straight away across those tracks, although people tend to go straight across the tracks.
Yeah, people do. And the concern is that piece of it between where if you're standing on the street, on the intersection of Main Street and Com Ave, looking towards the railroad tracks, there's that first piece that is cobbled, and there's a couple little benches and sitting areas till you get to the sign that says trail and you go left. That's a shared space, and they have signs that ask cyclists to dismount, but then it was brought up that if you're on a trike or using some sort of mobility device, you really may not be able to dismount. But that's the piece that's of concern. But actually the whole thing is, because as you say, people will just go straight through. They won't go around the building because they see the tracks ahead of them. They just go over it straight ahead. So it's a thorny issue, but July is going to be here before we know it. So
but I'm confused. So it's this transportation group that's trying to figure out something to do differently about what's already been created there?
Well, it's actually the select board tasked the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail group to suggest short-term and long-term solutions to the safety issues at Junction Park. So it could be, I mean, people have said, well, you could put a temporary divider down and one half could be cyclist and one half could be pedestrians. So these ideas are all in the works and nothing's been decided yet, but there were two parts of it. One was short-term, since it's looming, and the other was going forward. And there've been suggestions about moving the trail, you know, over onto where some of the gardens are, and the gardening people don't like that idea, which I can understand, because that I don't remember it from the old days, but I know that a lot of work was put into that space to make it as welcoming and nice as it currently is. So,
and has this somehow ended up being different than what everybody thought it was going to be, or it's just seeing it in action has raised?
I think it's seeing the reality of it. Yeah, it's seeing the reality of it, because I think some people didn't realize that the trail was coming right through that park, and that is the distress that some people feel about, you know, how many bikes, you know, what'll it be like? What's the reality of it? And what's the danger of it for bicyclists and for pedestrians? So it's a kind of a, you know, comes to a, well, it's narrower than the trail, but even so, it's a shared, it's more like on the trail, you, at least for when I'm on the trail, which is off the Com Ave part, it's pretty well marked and you can kind of see you have good visuals of where the cyclists are, and you keep to the right and people go, you know, it seems to be more navigable somehow than coming into this park piece of it. To be continued.
Yeah.
The other thing about it is the park is sort of a destination. They did a survey, and they got about the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, and they got about several hundred responses. And I haven't seen the results of the survey. It was about how often you use it. Do you walk there? Do you take a bike? Do you drive? And what your concerns are about it. So that'll be data that they'll take into consideration, and so they will make recommendations to select board about what to do.
Okay. A lot to think about. A lot going on in this town.
Yes.
Okay, next up are the liaison reports. Anyone have any comments on the reports that were sent out? I did note that in Margaret's report, she's mentioned something about robotic pets that are being piloted with some people. That sounded interesting. I think that's something that we should follow, especially during COVID when people are stuck at home, you know. Maybe a robotic pet would be a good idea. It's low maintenance.
A couple of our seniors have them, and it's made a huge difference. You know, they're not in a position to truly care for a live pet for a variety of reasons. Maybe they don't have the mobility to take the pet out. Maybe they have a memory problem, so if they don't end up forgetting to feed the pet, you know. There's a lot of data out there that for some seniors under certain circumstances, this is very comforting and it's enjoyable to them, and it's, you know, clearly no danger to a real pet, you know. So we do know a few people that have them that love it. So it's the right solution for some people.
Okay, I think we should follow that. Now, Michael, you had talked a long time ago about the Echo Dot Alexa. This was years ago, that might be a good thing for seniors to have because it's someone to talk to or to give reminders. And we never really talked about that. Oh, you're on mute, Michael.
I know one person who likes to talk to Alexa every morning as a companion.
So these are things we should think about.
Yeah, sometimes just even like, you know, asking Alexa in the morning, you know, what were the baseball scores? What were they, you know, the weather report? You can get some sort of instantaneous information. And if you forgot it, you could ask again, and, you know, it's not a problem, you know, to ask again. So for some people, that seems to be a helpful device for them.
Yeah, and I've programmed them to remind people to take medication, to have an afternoon yogurt, to feed the cat. I mean, you can have it at 3 o'clock every day, tell someone to do something. So it can be used that way too, to good end.
Interesting. Okay. Susan, do you have anything from the select board to report?
There is going to be a Patriots Day Parade this year. It will be on Monday, I think it's the 18th. There will be, let's see, wrong way. Dawn Salute on the actual Patriots Day, which is the 19th. Yes, the 18th is when we observe it, and that's when the parade will be. And the week before, there will be the exercises at Miriam's Corner, and all this will be on the town website, but it won't, the parade won't be as extensive as it was pre-COVID, because they were, they were waiting to see, is this going to happen, or is this possible? So their time for planning it was a little bit short, but the Concord Battery and the Fen band, I expect, I don't know for sure who's going to be there, but it will be a respectably sized parade and opportunity for people to get out and see each other outdoors. So that's exciting. And then town meeting comes up on Sunday, May 1st in the gym, also the auditorium and the cafeteria if necessary. And if necessary, it will continue to Monday and possibly Tuesday, depending on how it goes. But after having two years of one-day meetings, I hope we can keep it to one day. It starts, I believe, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Ginger had suggested that we might start meeting in person again, but I think we should wait until we have more people back meeting before we make a decision about whether we want to meet in person or stay on Zoom. I think Zoom usually gives us a good turnout, so I'm all for keeping it on Zoom, but it didn't work out that way tonight. So then the other big thing is our membership going forward. So I won't put you on the spot, Kristen, about whether you want to come back, but we potentially lose 4 members. So we will not have a quorum if we don't replace members. I've asked people I know, and everyone seems really committed, or, the time isn't good for them or something. So what are we going to do to try to get more members? And I'm not sure how many other boards and committees are in this position where they're facing. There's a list at the end of we started putting it on the select board agenda, which boards and committees have vacancies, and it's a fair amount. And it's compounded by the fact that we've added 5 committees just in the last year. So the number of assignments. Now, we did do something that the select board, when we met in the fall, the question has come up over time about serving on 2 boards or committees or commissions. And what we decided was that was possible if the committees didn't conflict with each other in any way. For instance, you wouldn't have someone on 2 regulatory boards, but an example of the person that was just nominated recently is serving on personnel board, but wanted to be on public ceremonies and celebrations. And those are pretty distinct, they don't overlap in any way. So that's one option, is if people are already on a board. And when I ask people about talk about Council on Aging, I say it's there's a lot going on, but it's a monthly meeting. It's an hour and a half, and it's not a heavy lift. It's not like being on finance committee or the planning board or one of those regulatory boards. So it's a nice way to keep a hand in on what's going on in town, and it's not a huge time commitment. So that's part of my spiel. But if you do talk to people, you can say it's with the agreement of the select board, which means we'll nominate you to be on, if you're already on one committee, to be on a second, if you choose. Okay. But I bring it up regularly at select board meeting, and we're not meeting till the 28th, but I'll certainly bring it up then about the acuity of the problem because of the quorum issue. So. Okay. Hi, Carlin. Welcome to the meeting.
Can I ask a quick question about that very point? Susan, would someone from, say, the PEG Access Committee have a conflict with the Council on Aging Committee? Could there be some crossover there? Because I'm kind of interested in joining the COA.
Oh, well, yeah, come on down, Carlin.
No. I know that Carol Cushing is the liaison to the COA. I don't have to be the PEG Access liaison by any means, but I've really enjoyed watching your committee meetings. And I know what you folks do is very valuable. And I got to tell you, I'm a pretty trustworthy committee person. I will at least show up for quorum purposes. So it's one thing that but I didn't want to offer myself if you thought, Susan, that there might be a conflict.
I don't see that there is. I think that the areas where that's likely to happen are you know, not between COA and PEG Access. I wouldn't imagine that to be any kind of conflict at all. So okay. If you would like to do that, what you should submit another volunteer card and ID COA as your committee of choice, and that will get you in the pipeline.
Okay, thanks. Caroline, I'll talk to you later, okay?
Okay, and Carol Cushing rotates off this year. So it'd be, she finishes her term.
That would be really convenient. Yeah. Is she planning on renewing? Do you know?
This is her second term, I think, so she can't.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well,
unless we change that.
Yeah. Let me talk to you further about that, Caroline. Okay. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay.
I would like to say that we currently have one member who's not here today, who's also serving on the cemetery committee.
Someone who's on too?
Yes. This Rod Rodrigo is on the cemetery committee as well as the COA.
I didn't know that. Okay. Huh. All right. So I guess that's already in effect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess there's no conflict there.
Here. I hope not. Okay. ARPA funding. Has anyone had any ideas?
Did you already write to Terry about what we had discussed last time?
I did.
Okay. Did you get a response? Just a thank you for sending it, kind of?
I don't remember she replied to that one.
Just want to be sure that it got in anyway.
Okay.
Did you send that
I will
to,
keep
all the rest of us? Did you send that to everybody on the board? The copy?
No, I just took it from the minutes and sent it to Terry.
Okay.
So it was the same information that we all saw in the minutes.
Okay.
Could you my mind about what it is you're talking about?
Oh, it's the federal funding. I don't remember what ARPA stands for, but states and communities are getting this funding. And the government wants community involvement in deciding how to use the funds.
Right.
So there was a meeting for the select board about this. So I think it's supposed to be somewhat in response to, COVID experiences, but not necessarily. So we were trying to come up with things that the COA could request funds for.
And what?
We really didn't come up. On our list.
You're saying it was in the last minute, right?
In the last minutes, yeah. So we talked about the loss of revenue because the treasure chest was closed. So just funding for that. Mental health programs, although we have a sustainability problem with that because you'd want funding to go forward, not just for a given period of time. We talked about having another van, not right away, but down the road when things pick up again and we need to replace one. And resilience and enhancing safety at the facilities and on the buses. Those were our items.
I could add a little bit to the ARPA. It's American Recovery Something Act, and Concord is getting $5.6 million, which has to be allocated by 2024 and expended by 2026. And the criteria are fairly broad, and there's one big bucket called loss of revenue, which the town, if your award is less than $10 million, you can just put it in the town general fund and use it as a replacement for revenue that's been lost. And that's one of the options that's being discussed. And the advantage of that is that it goes through the same public process as the budgets. And it would allow, it's been suggested that a quarter be allocated for 23, 24, 25, and 26, a quarter of the 5.6 million. And then there would be the same hearing and process to decide exactly how it's going to be spent. But there's also infrastructure. I mean, we heard last night about the road. I mean, there is often with resources, there are way more needs than there are resources to fill them. So it's a process that will, nothing's been decided. And it's a process that will continue over the next few months, and certainly in preparation for in the fall, once the budget prep starts for next year. But I agree with what Carol Ann said. Because there are other people that want other staff positions, and that's not a good idea because of the continuity. You know, you can't do that for 1 year without knowing what's going to happen. So it would be more for capital projects or things that just require one-shot funding.
Okay. So next on our agenda, which is a new thing, is comments from guests. So Carlin, do you have any comments?
Sure. Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End. For those of you who don't know me, I've been watching lots of town committee meetings in the last 2.5 years. I really do enjoy watching the COA because you folks are serving pretty much a quarter to a third of the population of town, and you're underrepresented. You don't get enough credit for it. I think, Ginger, you're doing a marvelous job in what you do. The comments I have, though, is I want a robot pet. Where do I get one? It sounds like a cool idea. That's all.
I want one too.
Thanks.
You can buy them online like everything else.
What do they look like? Anybody know?
It's like a stuffed animal, but it's got mechanical, features and, an interactive kind of program, I guess you'd call it, but they're very soothing.
Oh, is this like the
like the what?
Like a cat? I think I've seen stuffed animal cats that purr and they'll kind of roll over. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, or dogs. Yeah.
Or dogs. Okay.
And part of it is even they breathe, you hold them. It sort of feels like you're snuggling with them. The ones that I've seen.
We may have to look into this. Okay. Are there any other issues or questions, comments from anyone? No. Okay.
The only thing I could say is that the council Concord After 60 group has been very, very active. They were working on bylaws, but they really don't want bylaws because they feel it too constricting. They really don't want to be a corporation. So it's an interesting interplay of how do you put together the organization with enough structure to be useful, but not to be restrictive in what you can do. So they did do the meeting in March was actually a Trivial Pursuit exercise over Zoom, which was kind of a new thing. There were 3 teams and people participating, and they really liked the idea, and it really worked out quite well. So they're probably going to have it again occasionally as part of a game night process going forward. But it was well received, and there's quite a bit going on. But it's this next one in March is about downsizing. So maybe there'll be some things coming into the treasure chest from whatever we're doing in the downsizing. So we'll have what comes out of that. I'll bring that up when we have our downsizing meeting and see.
Great.
People know that that's a place where they can put special things that gift items are likely to be useful from the other people's perspective.
Okay, very good. Are we ready to adjourn?
Yes.
Okay. Take
Second.
a vote. Okay, that was Terry.
Aye.
Oh, wait, so we
Michael?
are voting on this? Sorry.
Yeah, we're voting. Oh, we'll have a motion. Well, we don't have a quorum, but do we have a motion to adjourn?
All right, second.
Oh, no one made the motion to adjourn.
All right, I move that we adjourn.
Michael, do you want to make?
I'll make a motion then.
Okay, Michael second. Kristen?
Yes, I'm sorry. So who made the motion and who seconded if we're really doing this for the minutes?
Terry made the motion, Michael second. And you're a yes, I'm a yes. And I'm going to call on Susan and Ginger too. Susan?
To vote on adjournment?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Ginger?
Fine with me.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, well, hopefully we'll have a quorum next month.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.